upscalers, or really why I don't do a ton of HDMI mods. I've only done one for the N64, and technically I also did the RGB mod that comes with it. For the most part, I really just stick to this guy, the RetroTink 5X Pro. It is a beautiful piece of hardware that does a lot of things that I don't understand. It has RGB in, YPBBR, whatever these guys. It also has this doohickey, whatever it is, and SCART. I cannot remember what this is. It says YC, but that doesn't help me. It does run off of micro USB, but this is kind of an older device. Not too old. Well, it says 2021 on the copyright date, but that's like about the time I bought it. It's been around for a while, as far as I'm aware. There is a newer version of this, the RetroTink 4K. I am interested in it. I think it looks good. It's a little expensive, but I do think it is worth the price. It's just I already have this and it works for what I use it for. I don't really care that much about upscaling PlayStation 3 and stuff like that. Anything 720p and up, I don't really need to upscale because like this I'll use for my original Xbox, Dreamcast, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 2, and the Wii. For my GameCube, I use this adapter, which is just as plug and play as it gets. It's got a remote with it. It's pretty nice. I'll open it up here. Now, I guess this is kind of a hashtag ad because I sell these on my website. I'm probably not going to sell them once I'm out of them just because no one buys them, which I get. It's a little pricey, but since I offer GameCubes on my store that are modded and I don't do HDMI mods for them, anyways, I highly recommend these, whether or not you buy one from me, just because it is going to be the same as the GameCube HDMI mod that you would do without all of the extra work. Yes, this is going to stick out a little bit, but depending on your setup, you're not going to see it. You're not going to notice it. It's fine. And it works perfectly. It is literally plug and play. Comes with its own HDMI cable. I don't know if it's that high quality, but it's good enough to get the job done. But the reason why I like this over an HDMI mod is because, like I said, it's going to give you the same results as the GameCube HDMI mod. So why would I put the work in? Like, I love doing hardware mods. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to do a video on why I don't like software mods, why I don't do them on the channel really. But when you can buy this for the same price, maybe even cheaper, I have no idea what HDMI mods go for the GameCube. This is a no-brainer to me. The only reason why you would want one is if you like need it to be not sticking out, but like the cable already sticks out of the back anyways. What's like a couple more inches? I understand if you just don't want an adapter and you'd rather have it built in, but to me, it's just why would I put in the work and the like risk of potentially ruining the entire GameCube when I can get the exact same results? And I mean the exact same results. It runs the same software, people. But that's not the same for all HDMI mods. Like my N64 HDMI mod is better than any of the adapters you're going to get for the N64. Like the N64 HDMI adapters are awful. Like at best, it's going to be a line doubler. It's going to be better, but you're really not going to notice that much of a difference. It gets the job done if you just want a single HDMI for that console. But when you're someone like me who has almost every mainstream console since like the NES, this is the way to go. Like, yes, even this is expensive, but this is about the cost of 2 HDMI mods. And when I'm running the Dreamcast, the Xbox, the Wii, the PS1, the PS2, all through this, why would I get 5 HDMI mods for all of those consoles? It would just cost more money to get the same or maybe better results out of this. And even better if I got the RetroTink 4K. But this goes up to 1440p depending on the console. And honestly, the older the console, the better this works for, in my opinion. Mainly, it comes down to like the type of graphics. For pixel graphics, this will make it look insane. It is so clean and crisp. Oh, it looks gorgeous with pixel graphics. And before I move on to talking about this more, I just want to preface, I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to this technology. If you didn't get that from me calling it this thingy, I just have eyes that are pretty good at seeing. I don't wear glasses. And I used to have 2010 vision. I don't know if that still stands, but my eyesight really hasn't seemed to decrease yet. This is from the perspective of an average consumer. I mean, I'm probably a little bit higher up than the average consumer. I think the average consumer would not care about this. They would just go red, white, and yellow into their 4K TV as long as that's possible. But I just don't think this works as well with the 3D consoles. It definitely helps. Like, I would way, way, way rather have this or an HDMI mod than just using one of those AV to HDMI cable adapters. Those are terrible. Don't get those. But these will clean it up. It'll make it not so dim because like the AV to HDMI adapters are so dark and gross. I don't know why it does that to the picture. If someone who knows more than me wants to explain in the comments, go for it. Just don't be condescending. It still looks way better, especially in bright scenes in games. It's just not going to be emulation quality. Like emulation is still leaps and bounds better just because it's a completely different way of running the graphics. Like you can't just turn the Wii to a 4K system with something like this. You have to emulate it to do that. Something like the RetroTink or the OSSC, I think it's called, the open source scan converter, I believe is what it stands for. These upscalers are going to be the best you can get a picture from a console without it just being emulation. There's crazy things you can do with emulation. Like I saw someone put new textures in for Metroid Prime, and that was about the time that Metroid Prime Remastered came out. And honestly, they were both immaculate looking. The emulation almost looked better than the remaster. At some points it did, but you're not going to be able to do that with this. This is going to be the best way and the easiest way, the non-soldering way to get your consoles, any of your consoles, to look as good as they possibly can. Even with the RetroTink 4K, I'm not going to be sticking a modern console into it. There is an HDMI in the 4K version of this, so you can plug in the PS3 and get that 720p signal up to 4K. But for me, I've invested a lot of money into my LG OLED. I love to talk about it because it's gorgeous. It is an amazing TV. It's a very expensive TV, but it was 1000% worth it. And it has AI upscaling built in. And this is where, if you use the RetroTink 4K on the PS3 and put it on a TV that doesn't have any AI upscaling on it and compared it to a PS3 just straight plugged into my TV, I don't think I could tell a difference if it was a blind test. I would be completely guessing. Yeah, it's good for a lot of things. I think some things you do want to like keep your expectations in check because there was a slight bit of disappointment when I got this and I was like, man, this doesn't look as good as I thought because I've just seen so much emulation and it's like this just can't compare to emulation. Nothing on a console can compare to what you can do with emulation. But the point of this video was to say why I don't do HDMI mods for my ultimate console builds. It's because I can just plug it into this guy and get the same results. And I know it's not going to be exactly the same results, but I doubt I would notice a difference. Yeah, having all HDMI is nice, but I have an HDMI switcher for all of my HDMI consoles, and I've got a component switcher for all of my component consoles. So I don't have to switch out the components all the time. I can just hit the button on the component switcher and then, oh wow, this is just now magically upscaling another console. So yeah, I recommend getting something like this, but I understand if you're like, okay, I only want like one or two consoles. I don't need to do a million HDMI mods for every single console. Or maybe you do. You're just like, nah, I want all HDMI and I want it for 80 systems. You do you, boo. I really don't care. I'm just trying to give advice. And this device makes the most financial sense. Again, the 4K is just a bit too pricey because at that point, if you were buying that and you were going to mod like 5 consoles with HDMI, then yeah, you could just do that. But at the same time, there's no risk involved with this. You could completely ruin a console by adding HDMI to it and not being as good as you might think. Or you just mess up. Things happen. I don't know. Or you could just plug some cables into this and you get near the same results, if not better. There's so many settings in here that are way above my pay grade. I just kind of mess around with the remote until it looks good to me, which is not much messing around at all because I don't know what I'm looking for. It's just a solid little device, and so is this guy. Like, if there's a solid adapter, and not all of the HDMI adapters are going to be good, like steer clear of the Aeon, whatever you want to call them, adapters. Those are not good. The GameCube one is fine, but they do the same thing as this one, and this is like less than half the price of the Eon one. The N64 one is garbage. Also, the M Classic Upscaler, I bought it. I didn't notice a single difference. Either I had a dud or it really does not do you any favors. So yeah, those are my thoughts on HDMI, upscalers, all that stuff. HDMI mods are fine. They're good. It's just not financially viable for me. If companies who make them want to send them my way, I would be more than happy to do the mod and check it out. And maybe I would actually keep it in my setup. But for me, right now, still live at home and I would like to move out. So this makes way more financial sense, especially because I already own it. And yeah, I know I shouldn't have led with this in my PS2 video because I said easy and cheap mod, blah, blah, blah. This is optional. I know it's $300. I just wanted to complain about that because I still get comments on those all the time. It's like my most popular video on a day-to-day basis.